Another tiring day. I'm John, a 38-year-old bachelor. I work at the apparel company run by my father. We mainly deal with women's clothing for the wealthy, and our dazzling designs have been popular, boasting stable sales for a long time. However, recently, the company's performance has been stagnating, and we have been experiencing continued losses. If this continues, we might go bankrupt. It's a critical situation. I've been working day and night to help the company turn around. Then, one day, tragedy struck. I was eating lunch at my desk, as usual. Suddenly, I heard my cell phone ring in my bag. I hurried to check it and saw an ad on the screen. Lately, he's been busy trying to find funds and hasn't been to the office much. I wondered what it was about. "Hello, Dad. Oh, is there any problem, President?" I couldn't believe what I heard next. "What? The company might go under. What do you mean by that?" "Hey, don't yell." Well, actually, turns out, my dad had co-signed a loan for a friend who had skipped town last night. It's a typical story, but my dad has always been too kind-hearted. I quickly accepted the reality. If we go bankrupt, I wonder how many employees will be left out in the cold. And it's not just the employees, their families too. I need to do something, fast. The question is how to avoid bankruptcy. What do we do about bankruptcy? We need to think of something. I moved to an empty hallway and spoke in a hushed voice. About that, I want you to join the apparel company of the AB Group." "What, me, join that company?" "The AB Group is a major corporation we've been doing business with. They handle various ventures, including apparel. I've known their CEO, Mr. McKinley, for some time and we've been on good terms. For some reason, Mr. McKinley, the CEO, decided to acquire our company. It seems the condition for the acquisition is for me to join Mr. McKinley's company." I was confused but agreed immediately. John, glad you could make it. I'm so happy." "Yes, I don't even know how to thank you enough for saving our company. Thank you so much," I said wholeheartedly. No, you see, I owe a lot to your dad. Our company is what it is today thanks to him, so I'm glad I could help this time." "Thank you very much." I expressed my heartfelt thanks. "You don't have to be so formal. I fully understand your feelings. Let's talk as usual. I've always liked your character." The CEO said, "Well, do your best," and left. And so, my job at the new company began. I worked tirelessly, determined to produce good results as soon as possible. I wanted to repay Mr. McKinley's kindness quickly. That's when it happened. One morning, as I arrived at work, I was suddenly called into the CEO's office. Wondering what it was about, I was about to hear something astonishing. "How about you have an arranged meeting with my daughter?" "What?" I was shocked and couldn't believe my ears. "Me? Why?" "An arranged meeting with the daughter of the CEO of such a large corporation." I was so stunned that I couldn't move. Seeing me like that, the CEO said, "I know it's a tough situation for you to say no. Just meet her once, will you?" He then placed a photo of his daughter, Leela, on the table in front of me. "This is my daughter, Leela." I gasped as I saw the woman in the photo. What a beauty she is. With her distinct facial features, I was surprised that the CEO had such a beautiful daughter. "But me," I stammered, and the CEO said, "I know you well. You're kind and considerate. Just meet her once." Yes, I could only nod. That night, I called my father and told him everything. He had already heard about it from Mr. McKinley and seemed delighted, saying, "Why not? You've been all about work. It's about time you had some romance. Maybe this is fate." I decided to think of it that way. Besides, such a beautiful woman, and the daughter of the CEO, must surely be kind. I grew more and more excited as the day approached. Nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to today. The day of the arranged meeting arrived quickly, and I, in my newly tailored suit, greeted her. Mr. McKinley's daughter was as beautiful as in her photo. But there was one thing I didn't expect. Nice to meet you. She barely looked at me and answered coldly. Throughout the meal, Leela seemed unhappy, responding indifferently to anything I said. It was obvious. She was in this arranged meeting because her father said so. Realizing this, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. As the long meal finally came to an end, I felt a bit relieved and was about to say goodbye to her. That's when suddenly, Leela spoke up. If this ends today, my father will worry. Can we meet just once more? She said this in her usual blunt manner. Amused by her straightforwardness, I chuckled and said, sure, and we exchanged contact information before parting ways for the day. The morning of our next meeting. Heading to our rendezvous, I couldn't help but laugh at the unexpected turn of events. I wasn't nervous anymore. Probably today she would be as unenthusiastic as the other day. A date to decline an arranged meeting. I knew this was going to happen. But still, she's the daughter of the CEO I owe so much to. I must be respectful. Thinking I shouldn't keep her waiting, I arrived much earlier than the scheduled time at the clock tower where we agreed to meet. It's almost time. Looking across the crosswalk, I spotted Leela among the crowd. She really is beautiful. Leela, standing out even in a crowd, has a dignified yet elegant air fitting for a CEO's daughter. I was admiring her when our eyes met. Leela, thank you for today, I said to her with my best smile. That day, I only went because my father told me to. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Her tone was gentle, but her words were quite direct. Well, it's just for today. We first went shopping for some clothes she wanted. As usual, Leela didn't smile or relax her expression, barely making eye contact with me. Since she's the daughter of a client, I tried hard to keep the conversation going without making things awkward, but she remained stern and unresponsive. At lunchtime, we went to a French restaurant she likes. Still, the conversation was minimal. Leela, perhaps due to her upbringing or maybe just not wanting to be with me, stayed silent. As soon as she sat down, she quietly began eating the courses that came out. Feeling awkward with the silence, I spoke up, ready for it to be a monologue. Well, this lunch is delicious. Knowing such a great place, you really have good taste. Ever since our company nearly went bankrupt, I haven't eaten well. To my surprise, she glanced at me and asked, "Your company was in trouble?" I was startled by her sudden interest. Not sure why she responded to this topic, I continued talking. Oh, it was tough. Constantly in the red. Those might be new terms for you, Leela. Bankruptcy, debt, losses. I laughed, but suddenly, she looked down and quietly said, "No, maybe, I should tell you. My father will probably tell you eventually anyway." Leela then began to share her past. Although now a large corporation, the group struggled in the early days. Clients left, banks refused loans, and her father had to repeatedly borrow money. During this time, Leela's mother left them for another man. Since then, Leela has been supporting her father, striving together. Their efforts paid off, and the company grew, gaining wealth. Then, the behavior of those around them changed drastically. People who had never helped them before suddenly started flocking to them, driven by their desire for money. Having seen such greed, Leela became more guarded. "My father is too kind-hearted, and I worry he might be taken advantage of." Hearing her story, I could see why she became strong-willed. And somehow, I found myself interested in her. I respect you. Not many can achieve so much after such tough experiences, actually. I also come from a single-parent family. We struggled to keep the business afloat. In the beginning, we were really poor. My mom couldn't handle it and left my dad. With a little brother to care for, it was tough. So I joined my dad in trying to revive the company, but we could only manage an average life. Then, my father ended up burdened with someone else's debt. Just when the company stabilized, I looked at her with a wry smile. I'm so grateful to your father for his help. Leela listened intently to my story. Then, for the first time, she smiled, a smile I had never seen before. Seeing her smile, I thought she was cute. Thank you for today. And so, my first and last date with Leela ended. The next day, I was anxious about what Mr. McKinley would say, but he was on a business trip abroad, which gave me a bit of relief. A few days later, I had an unexpected reunion with her. Wow, Leela, who had been out on assignment at a group company, had returned to the office. I hadn't seen her at the company since she was away when I first arrived, so this was our first encounter in the office, but she seemed somewhat uncomfortable working with me. Good night. Have a good night, too. Leela, who worked late into the night until the last train, was tough but always worked the hardest herself. Maybe I should stay for overtime too. It was just Leela and me left in the office. I bought her a can of coffee and brought it to her desk. Working late again, thank you. Thanks. Then, after taking a sip of coffee, Leela looked at me and said, I've realized something. It's true that many are after money. Money changes people, that's true too, but not everyone is like that, and you certainly are different. So, I'm sorry for my behavior the other day. I've been reflecting on it since then, spending the whole day with you in such an unpleasant mood. I felt a strange flutter in my heart as she spoke, looking down. I think you are a valuable asset. Let's do our best tomorrow too. From that day, Leela and I began going out for dinner after work, combining it with business meetings. One day, after finishing overtime as usual, we were having dinner and drinks at a small restaurant. Perhaps having had a bit too much to drink, Leela became unusually talkative and suddenly confessed, You know, I think you're the only one who's ever moved my heart. What? Why so sudden? I was flustered by her direct gaze but couldn't take my eyes off Leela as she said those words. After that, we officially started dating. Of course, with marriage in mind. Mr. McKinley was delighted. Later, I learned from Mr. McKinley that he thought since I had supported my family's business through tough times, Leela and I would understand each other, and I could soften her guarded heart. That's why he encouraged the arranged meeting. I was surprised Mr. McKinley knew about my past, but it turned out he and my father had been friends for a long time. My father had helped him when his company was struggling, and no one would lend him money. Now, my father and I had been helped, and I had formed a connection with his daughter. Thinking about it, it seemed inevitable that I would end up with her. Leela, who had initially been so reserved, now often wore a bright smile. I felt happy to be able to bring that smile to her face. The restaurant that the high school dropout reserved sure is terrible. Let's head back. At the welcome party for the new employees, I had reserved a fancy restaurant. As usual, the director Michael, who always looks down on me as just a high school dropout, said that to make fun of me. This is why incompetents are useless. Really, what a waste. He probably said that to ease the tension for the new employees and make everyone laugh. However, he was the only one laughing at that moment. Since I, the target of his words, was feeling down, it created an awkward situation where no one could really laugh. But, oblivious to the atmosphere, Michael continued to badmouth me in the restaurant. Little did he know, he would face despair in just a few seconds. My name is John. I work for a company related to food ingredients. I joined this company after dropping out of high school, So my highest level of education is junior high school. Most people around me are professionals with college or vocational college degrees. Being someone who didn't even finish high school, I always had a complex feelings about my educational background for various reasons. In a group of people with brilliant careers, I often worried whether I could shine as well. But still, I love my job. I'm determined to push past these feelings of inferiority. I carry this strong will and pride in my work. I started working right after dropping out of high school because I had no other choice. There were unavoidable reasons. Mom, when I was in 6th grade, the house was unusually quiet when I came home from school. Normally, my mom would be either doing household chores or watching TV in the living room. But that day, there was no sign of either. No laughter from variety shows, or busy footsteps could be heard. Feeling something was off, I searched the house. Mom, I'm home. She was nowhere to be found in the living room or kitchen. Not in the bathroom, nor did it seem like she had gone out. The car was parked properly, and besides, I entered the house without taking out the key from my backpack. I thought she might have forgotten to lock the door, but seeing her usual shopping bag at home, it seemed unlikely she was out. Maybe she's doing the laundry. With that thought, I hurried upstairs. As I made my way up with heavy footsteps, I felt a warm breeze from outside. Good, she's up here. She must be on the balcony, taking in the laundry. That's why the window was open, letting in the outside air. Thinking so, I headed towards the balcony. Indeed, the window was open. I'm home, Mom. Feeling relieved, I greeted her louder than usual as I returned home. But there was no reply. The sense of relief quickly turned back into anxiety. I knew that if I looked over the balcony, I would see my mom taking in the laundry. Yet, for some reason, I was scared to look. But I had to check. I wanted to share stories about my day at school. I wanted to give her the invitation to the parent-teacher conference. With that in mind, I steeled myself and leaned over the window frame. The first thing I saw was the laundry basket. And then, Mom, there she was, collapsed against the balcony wall. I reflexively threw down my backpack and rushed out in just my socks. She always scolds me, "Wear your sandals outside," but that was the last thing on my mind now. Mom, Mom, I called out to her several times, but still, there was no response. She seemed to have a wound on the back of her head, perhaps from falling. What should I do? What should I do? To make things worse, there was no one else at home. My dad was at work. My 2nd grade sister, Emily, had said she was going out with friends and their parents. And my kindergarten-aged brother, Sam, was at an overnight daycare. I was in such a panic that all I could do was shout, "What's going on, John?" But my shouting had an effect. I made such a scene that the neighbor from the house next door spoke to me from their balcony. "Mrs. Wilson, Mom has collapsed." "What? Call an ambulance." I reported the situation to her, half crying, and she rushed in with a pale face. That day, I never got a moment of peace. It seems she contacted my dad's workplace from the hospital where my mom was admitted. My dad left work early and rushed to the hospital, while Mrs. Wilson stayed with me. I stayed home to wait for Emily's return. I tried to do my homework, but I couldn't concentrate on anything. I attempted to distract myself with video games, but I couldn't focus at all. I had no appetite, and I couldn't sleep even after lying in bed. Emily, tired from playing, had already fallen asleep. I just watched her innocent sleeping face. As I spent my time like this, the doorbell rang. It was past 11 p.m. "Yes, it's me, John." Standing at the front door was Mrs. Wilson, the neighbor. She's usually all smiles, but not today. I couldn't see her face clearly in the dark, but she avoided eye contact the whole time. "How's Mom? Is she staying in the hospital?" John, listen carefully. As she spoke, it started to drizzle outside. As Mrs. Wilson hesitated to speak, the rain began to fall harder. Soon, the droplets were pounding on the asphalt, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat. "Your mom, she passed away at the hospital." I couldn't comprehend what she was saying. "No, that's not right." I didn't want to understand. My mom, who was laughing and lively just yesterday. The same mom who was always nagging me about doing homework and taking a bath. She would no longer say anything to me. I couldn't accept this reality. A year has passed. Attending junior high school, I started doing the household chores in place of my mom. Taking care of Emily and Sam was quite a task. Dad helped when he could, but there's only so much he could do after working late. "Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Goodbye," the class representative said that, and the homeroom period ended. While my classmates headed to their various clubs, I quickly packed my bag to head home. Normally, club participation is mandatory, but I was given special permission not to attend. Looking back, I'm grateful to have attended a school that understood my family situation and related issues. Man, my bag is heavy on the way home. I shop for dinner almost every day on my way back from school. I try to keep my load light, but somehow, I ended up with more stuff today. And of all days, it's the day I need to buy vegetables. Maybe I should go home first. I can't miss the vegetable sale today. I can do this. I've managed this same pattern before. If I rush home, I should just make it in time. And that's pretty much how my junior high school life goes. Hurriedly returning home from school, cleaning, doing laundry, shopping, and preparing meals. I spend most of my time on these chores. Mrs. Wilson, who knows our situation, picks up Sam from kindergarten since I couldn't make it in time. He stays with her until either Emily or I return from school. He must be a handful, but I can only be thankful to Mrs. Wilson for doing this. Well, dinner prep is done. The younger two finish their dinner and bath first. Then, I do the laundry, which has become our usual routine. I used to clean at this time too. I'll clean when I get back from school. Emily offered to do it, so I let her. I was a bit worried at first, but it turned out to be an unnecessary concern. Maybe she paid close attention to how Mom and I did it. Emily does such a good job, there's nothing to complain about. Now I need to eat and study until Dad gets home. As tests approach, the amount of homework increases. Sometimes it takes until midnight, but I don't want to use my family responsibilities as an excuse. I try to manage my time efficiently, regularly reviewing my studies. Well, thanks to this, I often can keep up with my friends' conversations. As tough as these days are, I've found a few small joys in my life. Wow, I can't believe how much it shrinks after cooking. It's about cooking. I'm fascinated by how vegetables, meat, and fish bought from the supermarket transform into delicious food. More precisely, what I enjoy is the transformation of ingredients. When you heat a pile of vegetables, their volume decreases significantly. Firm fish becomes flaky and tender when you boil or grill it. The flavors and final presentation change depending on the types and amounts of seasonings used. This magical transformation is fascinating to me. I'm not particularly skilled at cooking itself. I've always been clumsy with my hands, so I knew it wasn't my forte. Maybe I'll work in the food industry in the future. That's what I vaguely thought at that time. When I became a high school sophomore, life got a bit easier. Emily and Sam grew up and started helping out with household chores. I still didn't join any clubs, but the rush of junior high school days has lessened. However, another nightmare struck our family. A call came from the hospital to our home. Dad. When summoned to the hospital, I saw Dad lying in bed. Apparently, he had collapsed suddenly at work. I'm sorry, John. Dad was always energetic, but at that moment, he weakly apologized to me. According to the doctor, it was the result of accumulated fatigue exploding. Since Mom's passing, Dad had been working late every day. Although he survived, it seemed impossible for him to work as hard as before. I had been careless, thinking he was always been energetic, but the consequences of overworking always come back to haunt you. Don't worry about the house, I'm here, and both Emily and Sam are doing good. I said this to reassure Dad, but I wasn't reassured myself. We had savings, but they would run out soon. He needed to be hospitalized for a long time, which meant a period without income. Driven by this anxiety, I decided to drop out of high school and chose to work. As a result, I joined the food company where I am now. Although it was not under ideal circumstances, I managed to realize the dream I had since junior high school. 3 years have passed since I started working. I couldn't even follow complex adult conversations, but I managed to keep going because I enjoyed the work. If there's one concern, it's this. Hey, John, another mistake. This is why high school dropouts are troublesome. That's my direct supervisor, Michael. Sorry, I'll correct it right away. The mistake was my responsibility, but being berated with the term high school dropout doesn't seem quite right. Moreover, it's not done privately, but in front of the entire office, a large group of people. Initially, I didn't feel any particular way about my educational background, but after being ridiculed by Michael, I started to feel embarrassed. Most of my senior colleagues are college or vocational school graduates, and I often feel out of place. Hey, John, you know the new guy coming in? Michael, sitting next to me with a sneering smile, said. The new recruit coming soon, who will be my junior, seems to have graduated from a prestigious private university. He apparently belonged to a food-related research lab there. I bet he'll be a lot more capable than some high school dropout. Is that so? I wonder if I could have fixed my mistake in the time spent on this conversation. Focusing on Michael's taunting would eventually break me mentally. In my first year, I realized this and started internally retorting every time he said something. Surprisingly, this was quite effective, leaving me unfazed by anything other than the shame of my educational background. Funny thing, some in the department are suggesting you as a mentor. How about that? Me, a mentor? Surprised by the sudden news, I looked at Michael's face. I thought he was serious, but he was smirking again. Yeah, but that would be the other way around, wouldn't it? The other way around. You'd be the one being educated. Leaving just those words, Michael went back to his own seat, laughing loudly with a gah-ha. What a waste of time to take him seriously. Soon after, the new employee Michael mentioned arrived. He was a bright, impressive young man, older than me. He had a wealth of knowledge and experience and was quick to learn the job. I felt like he would surpass me in no time. I thought his arrival would be a great boost for our team, but his excellence only provided Michael with more fodder. You're really excellent, aren't you? Hardly any mistakes, just what you'd expect from a college graduate. The new guy, a bit embarrassed, repeated his thanks. Right, John, you think so too, don't you? Here we go again. Michael was asking me pointedly, his face bearing the usual mocking expression. Calm down, John. Getting angry or upset is exactly what Michael wants. Yes, I do think he's really amazing. Ha ha ha, look at you, acting all high and mighty for a high school dropout. Michael said, laughing. The new guy, others from our department, and I all had strained expressions, Doesn't he realize he's spoiling the office atmosphere? This guy here is a high school dropout, but hey, whatever. If there's anything, teach John a thing or two, will you? Me? Teach him? That's right. He doesn't know anything. In front of a laughing Michael and a forced smiling me, the new guy looked uncomfortable. Hey, you know what? Suddenly, as if remembering something, Michael pointed at me. Such rudeness, not just as a boss and subordinate, but even as human beings. But pointing that out to him would be endless. We're having a welcome party for this guy, and you're going to reserve the place. Pick somewhere fitting for a grand debut, all right. Understood, I'll handle it. I was surprised at the relatively reasonable instruction. What about the number of people and the schedule? What? You figured that out. You're the organizer. Okay, I got it. Our department has more than 10 people. Arranging everyone's schedules will be quite a task. And came the day of the welcome party. Having managed to coordinate the schedules, I reserved a high-end restaurant in downtown. Since Michael insisted on you decide regarding the budget, I chose an expensive place. It's probably going to be covered by expenses anyway. Everyone gathered at the agreed time, so I, having made the reservation, led the way in. We were escorted to a spacious room, with higher-ranking members seated towards the back. Wow, this is a nice place. The decor is nice too. Our department head, James, and the senior employees seemed pleased with the restaurant. The new guy looked really nervous. It must be his first time in a high-end restaurant. Overall, the reception seemed positive, but Michael alone looked unimpressed. I couldn't hear him clearly, but he seemed to be muttering under his breath. Let's say it again. Thanks for joining us. We welcome you. When James spoke as our representative, the new guy responded shyly in his usual manner. There was applause in the room, showing the warmth of our department. Michael, your turn. Michael, who had been sitting back with his arms crossed, remained in the same posture but started speaking when prompted by James. Just like James said, we welcome you. Coming from that famous university, you are already an elite. Unlike some incompetent, we have high hopes for you. We're looking forward to working with you. Not this again. Thinking this, I put on a forced smile. The atmosphere of the welcome party, which had been pleasant until a few seconds ago, began to turn a bit sour. As the course meal we had reserved was served, some time passed. However, Michael kept bringing up my education, tying every topic back to me. The senior employees tried to change the subject, but Michael would start berating with "this is why high school dropouts" at every opportunity. His persistent remarks were starting to get to me. The food, which should have been delicious, didn't taste quite right due to the stress. Does Michael forget that this is a welcome party for the new employee? Seems like he's just using the occasion to feel superior. Just when I was beginning to question this, a beautifully cooked steak was served. The steak was made from a premium-grade beef, skillfully prepared and marinated with red wine, making it a delicacy that worth of a high-end restaurant. The restaurant's website had boasted this as a specialty, so it must be delicious. A premier-grade beef steak, let's see. Michael took a bite of the red meat and, for a moment, his eyes widened before he set down his knife and fork. After chewing a few times and swallowing, he inexplicably turned his gaze to me. Well, this is definitely a place John reserved. What do you mean? I asked, not understanding his implication. Ignoring me, Michael put his knives back. He pushed the plate to the center of the table, indirectly suggesting someone else eat this. Apparently, it didn't suit his taste. He slurped his drink noisily and looked at me again. High school dropout's choice of restaurant is lousy. Let's leave, he announced loudly. With that remark, tension swept through everyone. The room started buzzing. No way. Is he serious? They murmured in disbelief. Hey, Michael. James, shaking with anger, addressed Michael, who was smugly enjoying himself alone. He was visibly pale and extremely agitated. Just then, a man appeared, opening the sliding door. He was a large figure dressed as a chef. What's going on? Sensing the odd atmosphere, Michael started looking around. James, still pale, informed him. This restaurant is one of our major clients. What? Michael was stunned by James' words. Observing this, the chef also spoke up. You're Michael, right? Do you not recognize my face? As a department head, he should at least recognize the face of a major client. But Michael looked confused and scared. Well, the owner of this restaurant, David, have you forgotten? Oh, yes, David, of course, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot, he said, layering excuses over a forced smile with a gentle tone. But David saw right through him. Didn't you find our food to your liking? No, not at all. It was very delicious. But just now, you clearly said it was awful, didn't you? It seems Michael's comments had been overheard. Michael's forehead was covered in sweat, clearly hit where it hurt by David's words. Michael still tried to make excuses. It was just a joke. Just playing with my subordinate. Right, John. He turned to me with the biggest smile I've ever seen, seeking help. After constantly belittling others, now he wanted help when in trouble himself. I couldn't help but feel the urge to vent all the frustration I had accumulated up to that point. Really, to me, it seemed like you genuinely found it awful, I said, and Michael frowned. He thought he was jumping onto a lifeboat, but it turned out to be a sinking ship. He shot me a look that said, "You'll pay for this later," but at this point, I didn't care. Come on, John. This isn't the time for jokes. Enough already, David shouted loudly at Michael, who kept repeating his pathetic excuses. The sheer force from the large chef made everyone in the room visibly flinch. Do you understand why I shouted at you, Michael? It's because I said the food was awful. Michael's demeanor was like that of a child being scolded by his father. I couldn't help but feel a laugh bubbling up inside. I know it's not the time to laugh, but I couldn't help it. No, that's not it. David shook his head in denial at Michael's dejected muttering. Looking straight at Michael, he continued. Tastes differ from person to person. Whether you find it delicious or awful, you're free to express your opinion. But, he said emphatically, raising his index finger. Firstly, you're a department head, aren't you? Not remembering the face of a major client is simply too careless. I'm sorry. Michael straightened up and apologized. David then raised his middle finger. Secondly, mocking John for his struggles. You keep taunting him about being a high school dropout, but is educational background that important? Can't you see he's working very hard under someone like you? I was so moved I nearly cried. Meanwhile, Michael's face clearly showed confusion, as if a big was floating above his head. He was puzzled as to why a client's owner would address me as John. It's utterly heartless to mock someone based on their education without knowing their circumstances. Even after being told this, Michael still seemed unable to grasp the words of David. Well, it's not surprising. I never talked about my family situation at work. One day in my sophomore year of high school, after my dad had fallen ill, I took Emily and Sam to visit him. We were allowed to bring fruits as a gift, so we brought that along with some pajamas. Really, these were just excuses. I was just too worried about him. That's why I want to ask you, my best friend. As we reached the front of the hospital room, I could hear my dad's voice from inside. It sounded like he was having a conversation with someone. All right, leave it to me. From the sound of it, the person was not a doctor. Maybe a relative or someone else. With that question in my mind, I opened the door to the room. "Here we are, Dad." "Oh, John." In the room, there were my dad and another man. He was a large man with a slightly intimidating appearance. He had pulled up a folding chair and was sitting close to the bed where my dad was lying. Hello." I greeted him as our eyes met. Emily and Sam followed my lead. "Hello," the man replied in a deep voice. Despite his looks, he seemed like a kind person. "I'll be stepping out for a bit." The man waved to my dad and quickly left the room. "Who was that?" "Hucko, that's a friend of mine. He came to visit." "I see." Visits usually involved similar conversations. We talked about how school was going for the three of us, if there were any tests, and how our grades were. It was just typical, light-hearted parent-child conversation. When the younger two weren't around, we also had more serious conversations. These discussions would be about the future, the household's finances, and such topics. After that, we'd peel the fruits we brought and eat them together. Today, it was an apple. I clumsily did my best to peel it. We ate the unevenly cut pieces, laughing together. When it was time to leave, Emily and Sam needed to use the restroom, so we used the one at the hospital. While waiting, I bought some tea from a vending machine and sat down. Then, someone approached me. "Hey, you're John, right?" Yes, that's me." It was the man from my dad's hospital room. He was holding a can of coffee and sat down next to me. "You're a friend of my dad's, right?" "Yeah, I'm David. Nice to meet you." After introducing himself, he took a sip of his coffee. "Your dad, he's really worried about you three." Feeling strangely tense, I quickly drank about a third of the tea I had bought earlier. "So, he asked me a favor." "A favor?" "Yes, to keep an eye on you three. He said it was not about the money, but just to watch over us three. To be someone we could talk to if something came up." I was told that he had requested just that. Learning that my dad had made these arrangements without my knowledge, I couldn't hold back my tears. "By the way, John, do you have any dreams for the future?" "A dream? Well, it's vague, but I've been thinking about doing something related to food ingredients." "Food ingredients, huh?" Hearing my reply, David started to ponder, resting his chin on his hand. After a few seconds of him, he turned his gaze back to me. "I run a restaurant. Through my connections, I might be able to introduce you to a company related to food ingredients." Really, I couldn't help but feel excited, and I started consulting with David about various things. I shared about the struggles I had faced, the hardships of my life, and the joys I had discovered amidst it all. I also mentioned my thoughts about dropping out of high school and getting a job, motivated by my desire for my sister and brother to live without hardship. Gradually, I became friendlier with David. Eventually, I got a job at the food company he introduced me to. It was the same company I work for now. The reason I could make a last-minute reservation at this highly sought-after restaurant was twofold. I was acquainted with David, the owner, and he was a business partner. Faced with these facts from David, Michael could only stare blankly. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke, his eyes filled with tears and his voice trembling. "But still, John, being a high school dropout, must have many things he doesn't know. So you curse him with foul language. Is that what a supervisor should do?" "True, I often feel the lack of knowledge compared to others. There's naturally a gap between someone who dropped out of high school and someone who went to college and did research. Knowing this, I've always tried to absorb everything I'm taught. I believe I'm not behind college graduates in terms of effort. But, enough, please leave. Sitting at the head of the table and mocking your subordinates, just to bask in your sense of superiority, I've seen enough." unable to bear David's intense gaze. Michael quickly gathered his things and left the room, almost fleeing. No one tried to stop him. "Sorry, this was supposed to be a welcome party, wasn't it? I apologize for spoiling it." David, now calm, apologized to the remaining people. No, please, don't worry about it," James responded in the awkward atmosphere. "We finished the food we had reserved, and the welcome party came to an end. David didn't say he would stop doing business with us. Just say hello to Michael for me." That was all he said as we left. I was glad things ended smoothly, but I couldn't feel entirely relieved. This whole situation had been caused by my personal circumstances. I left for home, feeling somewhat unsettled. As a side story, the incident was reported to President Johnson. Michael was apparently ordered to stay at home for about a month. With Michael gone, my feelings of inferiority about my education were relieved. I wish things had turned out well, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Weeks have passed, and the incident at the restaurant still lingers in my mind. I was protected by David, but I didn't actually do anything myself. This isn't good. I was overwhelmed by an indescribable sense of unease. While harboring these anxieties, a few weeks later, I received a phone call before the start of the workday. In the office, it was just me, the new guy Ryan, and Michael, who had returned. "Ryan, try answering it." "Okay." Michael, a bit subdued since that day, prompted Ryan to answer the phone. Though quieter, it's not like Michael had a change of heart about me. He's not harsh, but he seems a bit cold. "Yes, good morning. Yes. Oh, are you okay?" I could only hear Ryan's side of the conversation, but it sounded ominous. "Understood. I'll let Michael know. Please take it easy." After hanging up, Ryan approached Michael with a solemn expression. Apparently, one of the senior employees had the flu and was calling in sick. "Ah, got it. Just great. Right at the end of the month. I thought it was pointless to complain about it when the phone rang again." Ryan answered again. And during that call, another one came in. A familiar number. It was from a senior colleague's cell phone. "Good morning. This is John." "Hey, John, good morning. Sorry, but I've got the flu. Can you tell Michael I'm taking the day off? He, too, was calling in sick. The flu is going around lately, but I didn't expect so many people to catch it all of a sudden." "Understood. Please take care." I hung up and looked at Michael, just as Ryan was telling him about the second call. Another one. Okay, and John, it's the flu for him as well. The news has been saying it's especially spreading in schools. People with kids are particularly susceptible. In the time before the workday started, more calls came in. James and other seniors, all down with the flu. Only Michael, a few seniors, myself, and Ryan were left unaffected. What are we going to do? This was a bad situation. As Michael grumbled, it was indeed the busiest week of the month. We had more work than usual. This was going to be a tough day. End of month meant deadlines for submitting reports. There were materials to be sent out to clients requested by the sales department, so those needed to be prioritized. Although most of the materials were nearly complete, covering for everyone who was absent meant a huge workload. "John, go to the records room with Ryan and get these documents, and fast." Right away, I looked at the messy handwritten note with about 10 document names on it. They were all relatively recent, so it shouldn't be too hard to find them. "I'll hand you the documents I find. Can you put them in this basket?" "Understood." Ideally, I should teach Ryan where and how the documents are sorted and stored. But today we were in a race against time, so I decided to teach him later. I quickly returned to the office with the documents for Michael. "You're slow." This is why we can't rely on high school dropouts. Sorry. I was berated as usual, but Michael's expression was serious. Not his usual mocking self. I could tell he didn't have the luxury to tease. We were all pressed for time. It was past midday. It wasn't just about creating documents for clients. They needed to be approved by a supervisor, in this case, Michael, before being handed over to the sales team. That's the protocol in our office. Michael, I've sent 4 documents for your review. He didn't respond. But our eyes met, so I assumed it was okay. John. Joe, what's up? While I was working on the 5th document, Ryan approached me. He turned his laptop screen towards me. What should I do in this case? For this, you do it like this. I wished I could teach him more thoroughly from the ground up. But again, we didn't have the time. I quickly provided a solution and returned to my work. I see, thank you. Feeling relieved that the issue was resolved, I noticed Michael staring intensely at me. Michael, something wrong? No, nothing. Keep working. Don't waste time talking. Despite his stare, I mentally grumbled and resumed my work. By evening, I had become more accustomed to the hurried pace of preparing documents. It seemed manageable. But then, one of the seniors stopped working and seemed troubled. Are you okay? I might be in trouble. He said he was feeling feverish, nauseous, and had aches all over his body. Not being a doctor, I couldn't make any irresponsible statements, but judging from the situation, it seemed like the flu. After consulting with Michael, we concluded it was better for him to go home rather than risk spreading the infection. Sorry for leaving at a time like this. I'll take better care of my health. The senior left early, apologizing and looking guilty. We managed to complete the external documents just before the end of the day. But our work wasn't finished yet. With those down with the flu absent for the next few days, we had to get ahead on their work too. Or we'd be overwhelmed. As a mentor, I guided Ryan while we both continued working. I worried about making mistakes but prioritized completing tasks. Finally, that night, we're done. The last task of the day was finished. The senior's words of relief seemed to lift the weight off everyone's shoulders. The clock was already pointing past 11 p.m. Yes, thanks for the hard work. I noticed that Michael, who had stepped away from his seat, was handing out canned coffees to everyone. He gave them to the seniors and Ryan, and finally approached me. John, can I talk to you for a sec? Huh? His demeanor felt different from usual. His voice and face were serious. He gestured with his thumb towards the office entrance. It was a summons. Just wanted to say, good job today. Thank you. As I accepted the canned coffee he offered, he unexpectedly apologized. John, I'm really sorry for everything up until now. Michael apologized to me. And I was utterly bewildered, not understanding what was happening. Watching you work today, I realized I was wrong. I had wrongly judged you as incompetent. Michael, who had labeled John as incompetent, was surprised to see him work efficiently, contrary to his expectations. In a critical situation, John not only took on the role of a mentor, but also managed his tasks well. He was surprised to see this. I once failed university entrance exams 3 times. I had a dream school, you see. Despite his efforts, Michael apparently never got into his first choice university. Told by his parents that they could no longer support his education, he had to settle for a much lower-ranked university. That failure has always been a complex for me, so I took it out on you, trying to feel superior. Everything David said was right. Suddenly hearing his true feelings, I was even more confused. I wanted to say something but couldn't find the right words. But after seeing you today, I realized that a person's worth can't be determined by their education. You really did great. Thanks for your help." His words cleared the unease I had been carrying since the welcome party. I, a high school dropout, had managed to prove myself useful. That was so gratifying, it brought me to tears. We didn't resort to something as formal as a handshake at that point. Instead, we toasted with canned coffee in the hallway, tears streaming down my face. After that incident, Michael stopped his high school dropout bullying. Hard work gets recognized properly. A simple truth I had finally achieved. Seniors who saw me working hard late into the night, and those who heard about it, praised me. The atmosphere in the office improved, allowing me to work more freely and comfortably. I finally began to truly enjoy my job, which I started because of my love for food ingredients. One day, I took Emily and Sam to the cemetery where our mom rests. We cleaned her gravestone, set some flowers and incense, and paid our respects. After a few seconds, I opened my eyes. "Mom, I've got some good news." I briefly shared recent updates and then stepped back. I brought Emily and Sam forward so they were clearly visible to our mom. "Look, they've grown so much. It hadn't even been a year since our last visit, but kids grow up so fast. Our family's finances aren't tight anymore. I started working, and Dad is slowly getting back on his feet. So, I want the two of them to chase their dreams, not worry about the household. If they want to get a job, that's fine. If they want to go to college, that's fine too. Above all, I want them to confidently pursue what they feel passionate about." As I said this to them, a refreshing breeze blew. The flowers that we brought swayed in the wind. To me, it felt like Mom was nodding in agreement. Working at a finance company, one day I was called by my boss, Tom. A secondment. That's right. Well, go to your best. No, but the secondment is in eldercare. The company I work for operates a subsidiary that manages nursing homes. I, with no experience in caregiving, can't possibly work there. Well, that's how it is, Tom said, patting my shoulder sympathetically. A secondment, also known as a way to get rid of someone. In other words, I was effectively being fired. My name is Kevin. A pitiable 43-year-old suddenly let go from his job. I understand that elder care is an indispensable job in society. But having worked in finance for over 20 years, I still want to stay in this field. So, I reluctantly submitted my resignation. I knew that the company had been moving towards layoffs due to the recession, but I never thought I'd be targeted. I told my wife about it when I got home. Fired? Well, it can't be helped. Fortunately, my wife took the news quite calmly. But you need to find a new job as soon as possible. I know. We both looked at our daughter, Emily, watching TV in the living room. She just started elementary school this year. For my beloved family, I began job hunting the next day. At 43, I struggled to find a job. "Dad, you've been home every day recently. That's nice." My daughter said this while we were playing, and it caught me off guard. "Well, yeah, even so, Dad's going through a tough time," I replied with a forced laugh. "I need to be employed soon." Just then, my phone rang. Hello, it was a company where I had recently got interviewed. The only one where I had reached the final round. The decision on whether I got the job or not was about to be announced. A moment of intense tension. Then, from the other end of the line, the word hired came through. Finally, I was no longer unemployment. When I told my wife, she said, "Congratulations. Oh, what a relief. Looks like I start next week." "Oh, is that so?" let's celebrate on your first day of work then." At that moment, Emily, holding her toy, raised her arms in joy and said, "A celebration, yay," making us both laugh. And then, on my first day, a mix of slight nervousness and anticipation filled my chest. By the way, my new job is also in finance. I worked at a fairly large corporation before. Despite my age, my experience there led to my hiring. As I entered the company, the receptionist greeted me. "Let me show you around," she said, leading me to my new boss, named Jake. As I wondered what kind of person he would be. "Are you the new guy?" "Ah, yes. Nice to meet you, I'm Kevin." I was surprised that Jake was quite young. 30, no, maybe in his 20s. He must be exceptionally talented. Then, Jake looked at me and sighed in disappointment, saying, "Ah, Kevin, how old are you?" Well, as I wrote in my resume, 43 years old." 43, hey, I wasn't informed about this. Jake said this and looked at the receptionist, but she too seemed unsure how to react. I completely trusted HR with this. They said something about an exciting new hire coming, but why hire an old guy like him? "They really should have consulted me first," he muttered, making my blood boil. "I may not be young, but I will use my experience to do what I can." Then, Jake laughed abruptly. "I heard your previous company went through a major restructuring. It was just a layoff to get rid of unwanted employees, right?" At Jake's words, I choked and said, unable to find words. "So, you got lucky and got fired. Then you desperately came to interview with us. An employee from a declining company. You're only good for menial tasks." He smirked mockingly and said, "We don't need losers here." "What? What's that? You gonna talk back to your boss? If you get kicked out of here too, you'll have nowhere left, right?" What Jake said was true. To protect my family, I have no choice but to work under Jake. But the words that came out of my mouth were, "I'd rather not, thank you." Jake's smile disappeared. Working under someone who complains about age isn't going to benefit me. Plus, you disparaged the company I worked for as a declining company. A company that can't respect its competitors will eventually fail because of young, ignorant, and arrogant people like you. Jake was enraged and said, "What did you say?" But I had already made up my mind. When I glared back, he seemed a bit intimidated and faltered. "I'm sorry we couldn't come to an agreement. I'll be leaving now." I said this and left the room. I ended up quitting on my first day. As I approached home, I regained my composure. What have I done? What should I do now? Even though I was distraught, I couldn't go back to that company. I'm home. Hearing my heavy voice, my wife, who was in the living room, greeted me with a surprised look. "What's wrong? Did you forget something?" As my wife served a cup of coffee, I told her I got heated and left the company because of some cocky young boss. She got angry on my behalf, saying, "What? That's infuriating. If that's how it is, let's get you into a better company and show them. There's surely a company that will appreciate your strengths. If needed, I'll work too. Let's work on this together." She patted my shoulder reassuringly. Her words gave me solace, and I felt motivated to resume my job search. When our daughter returned from school, she said, "Oh, Dad's off work again." But this time I was determined to find a better job. I'll start over once more. That was what I was thinking when an unexpected event occurred. That evening, while relaxing with my family after dinner, the doorbell rang at an unusual time. It was rare for someone to ring the doorbell at that hour. I answered the door. "Hello, who is it?" There stood a young woman, apologizing. "Sorry for bothering you so late." I exclaimed, in surprise. It was Sarah, the receptionist from this morning. "My husband was extremely rude this morning, and I'm really sorry about that," she said. You're Jake's wife." She apologized again. She had watched me during that intense situation. noticing that I remained polite to the end. She praised me, saying she thought I was a truly wonderful person. It's a waste not to hire someone who can be courteous to everyone. So, I personally appealed to Mr. Johnson, the president. He has agreed, so I came here to invite you back. She had come all the way to scout me. True, I was polite, but I was also a bit sarcastic towards Jake, so whether I was truly courteous is debatable. Mr. Johnson hasn't received your resignation yet. He, along with apologizing, would like to meet you again. Could you come to the office tomorrow? I scratched my head, feeling a bit troubled. I was angry at Jake's attitude, but it's hard to outright refuse when asked so humbly. When I said, I'll visit the office tomorrow, she looked relieved. The next day, Sarah, who had visited me yesterday, was waiting for me at the office. I've been waiting for you, she said, leading me straight to the president's office. We then took the elevator to the top floor, where the president's office was located. Excuse me, I've brought Kevin, she said, knocking on the door. A voice said, come in. Inside, there was a robust-looking man and Jake, who had been unpleasant to me. Upon seeing me, Jake said, I'm terribly sorry for my rudeness yesterday, although he still seemed a bit arrogant. I felt a bit disgusted seeing Jake, but was somewhat taken aback by his apology. Then, Mr. Johnson also apologized. I'm really sorry for what my son did, he said, to which I responded with surprise. Your son? I looked back and forth between Mr. Johnson and Jake. They did resemble each other. Come to think of it, Emily had mentioned that she personally persuaded Mr. Johnson to keep me at the company. Being his daughter-in-law might have made it easier for her to convince him. Then Jake was asked to leave, and I remained with Mr. Johnson and Emily. That son of mine has always been too presumptuous, but he's still my beloved child. I wanted him to do well in this company, Mr. Johnson said, sighing with concern. Apparently, Jake, despite being capable, was impulsive and often acted alone, leading to discontent and resignations of talented people. Ideally, managers should have reprimanded him, but given he was the president's son, it was difficult for anyone to speak up, allowing his behavior to go unchecked. Mr. Johnson was considering how to deal with his son when he heard from Sarah that someone sternly reprimanded his son. That was me yesterday. You told my son he was just a young man living on pride without knowing the world. Frankly, I was surprised, even impressed. What my son lacks is advice from a senior who, despite having family and sudden unemployment, stands up again. Kevin, would you please join our company and teach the younger generation what it means to be a professional? And could you strictly guide my son too? Mr. Johnson asked me, leaving me flustered. I glanced at Sarah, who also said, please stop my husband if he gets out of hand. Oh, okay, I'll do my best. In the end, I decided to stay. I then joined the same department as Jake. Immediately, Jake's recklessness began. That's why I told you to pass this project. He was mercilessly angry at a junior, wielding a rolled-up paper like a baton. Other managers pretended not to see. Indeed, it was a hostile atmosphere. Sorry. As the junior apologized, Jake raised the paper to hit again, but I stopped him. Jake, this is too much. What is it, Kevin? From my experience, that project won't pass. It's better to move on quickly. Isn't that what we should teach our juniors? At my words, Jake seemed dissatisfied and muttered, "Umph," but he unrolled the paper he had been holding. It kind of feels like. I feel like a teacher guiding a mischievous kid. All right, let's move on to the next, Jake. As I patted Jake's shoulder with a laugh, he quickly scurried away. Everyone looked at me with respect for standing up to the president's son. Sigh. It seems I'll have to work hard at guiding this son for a while. However, a year later, Jake gradually became less abrasive and started to grow as a person. The atmosphere at the company improved significantly, and Sarah thanked me, saying, "My husband seems calm at home too." Then, Mr. Johnson assigned me to a different department with a new position. I guess it's what you'd call a rapid promotion. My salary increased, and my wife was very pleased. "Thank you for everything." Jake said this to me before I transferred. I don't know if he'll become the president one day, but no matter how important he becomes, I want to keep pointing out any mistakes he makes. Living for over 40 years and getting fired taught me one thing. It turns out I'm pretty good at taking care of others. I want to use this newfound talent to teach the younger generation what being a professional is all about. Even an old guy like me still has a lot to offer. You're a doctor. Give me a break, haha. A former classmate who always looked down on me as an introvert since our school days constantly teases me. Apparently, she is now working as a nurse at the hospital where I work. Seriously, you're a doctor. Please, don't hold me back. Her attitude is as rude as ever, and I can't help but sigh in disbelief. Then, right after that, "Welcome back, Director Davis." A beautiful female doctor speaks from behind me. My former classmate's face turns red with the words she continues to say, and she runs away. I never imagined that something like this would happen to us. I am Bob Davis, a 40-year-old doctor. My specialty is cardiac surgery. To learn cutting-edge techniques, I worked in a hospital in Germany for 10 years. Bob, I actually have something important to discuss with you. Something important. A hospital specializing in cardiac surgery is going to be built. I want your help with it. I received a call from my mentor about the construction of a new hospital specializing in cardiac surgery, and it seems I was chosen for the project. I accepted the offer and returned to my country after a long time. You're back. Welcome home, Bob. I'm back, Dad. Thanks for picking me up. My father came to pick me up at the airport. We're going to our house, right? Yes, that's right. For the time being, until I find a new place, I plan to stay at my parents' house. So, I nod at my father's words and get into the car. Your mother has been eagerly waiting for your return. Is that so? Every day she counts down the days until you return, wondering what to cook for you. I'm tired of hearing it. Haha, that's just like Mom. Hearing from my father that my mother was eagerly waiting for my return, I couldn't help but laugh, easily picturing her. Looking out the car window, the passing scenery made me feel somewhat nostalgic. Welcome back, Bob. I've been waiting for you. Thanks, Mom. I'm back. Must have been a tough journey. You've aged. Arriving home, I'm greeted by my mother. Like my father, she seems older than when I last saw her, reminding me of the passing time. I'm about to start cooking. Why don't you rest a bit until it's ready? Your room is clean. You can lie down there. Thanks, I think I'll do that. Taking my mother's offer, I head to my old room, which is kept just as it was, and I sit down comfortably. Feels nostalgic. It's really just like old times. Muttering to myself, I look around the room and notice my high school yearbook. Looking through the yearbook, I realize that while I still have contact with a few classmates, I have no idea what most of them are doing now. Well, they probably feel the same about me. As I go through the album, memories of high school naturally come back to me. I've always been shy, with only a few people I could call friends. Moreover, I've had the dream of becoming a doctor since I was young, so I spent most of my time studying. I was deeply inspired by Dr. Smith, who took great care of my mother when she was ill. I asked him how to become like him, and he said, "The key is to study a lot. The more you study, the more people you can help." From then on, I led a life centered around studying. Because of that, I honestly felt like an outsider in my class. There were some who mocked me for being an introvert. Especially a girl named Lisa, who was one of the most popular among the girls, would say, "Bob is such a boring introvert, isn't he?" Definitely. He's boring and kind of uncool. Exactly. He does nothing but study. A guy whose hobby is studying is really dull. I don't care what you think of me. What? The introvert is getting cheeky. She often came up to me with such remarks. It was the same in both middle school and high school, but her lines never varied, always calling me an introvert like it was her catchphrase. Introvert types are really creepy. They're so gloomy. If you think that, then stop bothering me. Shut up, really. The atmosphere gets worse when there's an introvert around. She persistently said unpleasant things like that. To make matters worse, Lisa had a wide social circle, even seeming to have connections with boys from other schools. Hey, the introvert's getting too cheeky. Always studying, trying to show off how smart you are. Study geeks definitely don't get any dates. Well, those who seem to be the more outgoing type, not part of the party crowd but still active, sided with Lisa and began to harass me. It was annoying to be bothered by these guys, but what mattered most to me was studying. I ignored them completely, not giving them any attention. Eventually, they got bored and stopped bothering me. Even amidst this, there were decent friends in my class who weren't part of the popular crowd. "Bob, can you help me with this?" "Sure, no problem." "Hey, do you mind hanging out after school today?" "Well, I guess a break is needed once in a while." "Sure, I'll join you." "Thanks, Bob." I, just like my peers, diligently pursued my studies, occasionally indulging in play and detours, enjoyed high school life reasonably. At times, acting like typical high schoolers, we'd do silly things or ride our bikes all the way to the beach. It wasn't all bad. I reflect on those days. When I hear my mom calling out that dinner is ready, I decide to put away the photo album and head to where my mom is. By the way, I'm still in touch with my friends from that time, and when they heard I was back in town, they suggested we grab a drink when time allows. Looking forward to that, I decide to turn in early to prepare for tomorrow. The next day, I head to the hospital where my mentor, now the director, works. The hospital where I'm scheduled to work is still in the pre-opening stage, getting things ready. The large hospital, where my mentor is the director, is the origin of my own hospital, from which only the cardiac surgery department branched out to form the new hospital. There were high expectations from everyone for more specialized and advanced treatments. I've got to live up to those expectations. Could it be, Bob? Lost in thought, I am addressed while on my way to the director's office. There stood a woman in a nurse's uniform. Could it be Lisa? The woman was Lisa, aged just like me. Her makeup was heavier than before. Her once blondish hair now dyed black and tied up. Her flashy nails now trimmed short, looking every bit the ordinary nurse. I could tell from her appearance that she was a competent nurse. Long time no see. Long time no see. Ahaha, Bob, you really haven't changed a bit. Still an introvert, huh? Lisa laughs heartily. Her appearance might have changed, but she's the same on the inside. You're a doctor. Give me a break. Sure, you were always studying. Right, sorry, but I'm in a hurry to the director's office. Frustrated by her usual rude attitude, I respond with a sigh. Lisa laughs even harder at my words. Seriously, you're a doctor. Give me a break. Don't hold us back. Lisa then adopts a condescending tone. You always studied hard, but being smart isn't enough to be a doctor, right? Can you even communicate with patients? Listen, just as I'm about to retort to Lisa's mocking. Aha, found you. A woman's high voice comes from behind me. As I turn to look, she steps between me and Lisa. "Welcome back, Director Davis." She said that and smiled at me. She was Sophia, a lively and beautiful woman with short hair, dressed in a lab coat. To me, she is a junior doctor and can be called the ace of cardiac surgery. She looks up to me with admiration. I was so surprised to hear Bob was coming back. "I came looking for you at the hospital today because I heard you'd be here. I absolutely want to be your assistant and learn your advanced techniques." All right, all right. I calmed down the excited Sophia with a laugh, forgetting the anger I had felt just moments ago. The director. Meanwhile, Lisa stood there, dumbfounded. Sophia, now composed, turned towards Lisa. "A new cardiac hospital is being built, right? Bob has been called back from Germany to be the director." "Germany? Really? This introvert?" Lisa looked at me incredulously as Sophia explained. Responding to her disbelief, I looked straight at Lisa. "It's really inappropriate to judge people by being extroverted or introverted. And to maintain such a condescending attitude, do you treat your patients the same way?" "Well, that's..." As I admonished her, Lisa blushed and looked down. She probably never expected to be talked back to by someone she considered inferior. "Lisa, you should get going before the scary head nurse gets angry." "Humph, I'm leaving then," Sophia said, laughing, and Lisa glared at us before leaving hastily. Lisa seems to be having a tough time. Tough? Sophia told me about Lisa. Lisa transferred here from another hospital a few years ago. I don't know much about her, but she's a single mother with a child. Apparently, Lisa was desperate to remarry, actively participating in matchmaking events and social mixers. However, she hasn't had much luck, perhaps due to high standards. After all, Lisa is 40, the same age as me. She's rumored among the younger nurses to be somewhat pitiful. Almost all the male staff in this hospital have been approached by Lisa. "Be careful, Bob. She must be really desperate." I thought about this as I listened to her. "Well, Bob will be fine, right? Hey, we're in a hospital here." "Oh, sorry." I smiled at Sophia, who trusted me and said that just in case. I agreed with her words. I could confidently say that nothing would happen between me and Lisa. But her situation did concern me a bit. As the director, I was leading a busy life. "Bob, about this patient." "Yes, that's right." Sophia from cardiac surgery, and even Lisa, who transferred to the same hospital, were there. "Dr. Davis, may I have a moment? Sorry, I'm discussing a patient right now. Could you please wait a bit?" "Okay." Lisa, unlike before, didn't call me an introvert anymore and properly referred to me as Dr. Davis. That was good, but... "Dr. Davis, how about lunch together?" "Sorry, I have a meeting planned with the other director." "I see." While walking in the hospital, being approached from around corners. "Bob, about that matter." "Yes, about that." "Dr. Davis, what are you talking about?" "Well, just... It's a conversation between doctors. We'll inform the nurses later." "Okay." Talking with Sophia, she tried to join in. For some reason, this person kept appearing wherever I went, trying to strike up a conversation. Isn't that person acting a bit odd? Sophia seemed puzzled by this behavior too. Then, one day, "Why don't we, as classmates, go out for a meal?" Lisa invited me. "I'm afraid I can't." I tried to leave after declining, but Lisa grabbed my arm and I couldn't move. "When would you be free? I'd love to have a long chat." I found Lisa leaning on me quite creepy. "There's no good day for me. I've decided to always have dinner at home," I said, distancing myself from Lisa. "Why not? Let's forget the past and have a fun drink." The past, I'm not bothered by it, but it's not something Lisa should bring up. "Bob, you've become so respectable. That's why I started liking you. In a romantic way, of course." Sorry, but I have a wife and kids. I firmly rejected Lisa's strange advances. Huh? Lisa was stunned by my words. I left her there and quickly went home. I'm home. Oh, how was your day, dear? Not bad, Ellie. Kevin, I'm back. I have a family of 3 with my wife Ellie and my son. Seeing my wife and son, who she was holding, naturally made me smile. Dinner will be ready soon. Thanks. Kevin was such a good boy today. That's great, well done. I took my son from my wife and followed her into the house. I deeply love my wife, and my son is the apple of my eye. Even now, I feel truly happy sharing dinner together. Actually, Sophia is my wife's sister and a person who introduced us. Are you okay, Sophia? I'm fine. Your ride will be here soon. Okay, sorry to keep you waiting. It was Ellie who came to pick up Sophia, who had passed out at a medical department drinking party. She was so polite to us. I'm sorry for the trouble Sophia caused. Please have these snacks. Ellie brought snacks to apologize for her sister's trouble. Her manners were so proper, I almost fell for her at first sight. Ellie. Yes, I'm Sophia's senior. Would you mind exchanging contact information? Sure. After that, I went all out with my advances. I think I was unusually assertive for me. Bob, do you like my sister? Oh, yes, I do. Then, I'll help you. I'd be happy to see you and my sister, whom I admire and love, happy together. With Sophia's support, I was able to marry Ellie. So, Sophia is not only my sister-in-law, but also, in a way, my benefactor. Back then, Sophia trusted me completely, knowing how head over heels I was for Ellie. Actually, I've been asked to come back to America. Really? And since you're pregnant, how about going back earlier for a hometown childbirth? That would be great. I appreciate it. My wife had come to Germany with me, but when she got pregnant, we were offered to return to America. Seeing it as a good opportunity, I decided to go back and sent my wife ahead to prepare for childbirth in America. She went to stay at her parents' house. After I returned to America, we settled into a new house, having just moved recently. We had stayed at my parents' house for a short while until we found our new place. I didn't want our precious family time to be disturbed, so I have been turning down various drinking and dining invitations. Even a meal with old friends was postponed. Speaking of which, I got teased a lot for being so la vie de vie when I mentioned this. Anyway, this time with my family was a treasured moment for me. Where's Lisa? She's off today. The next day, Lisa took a day off. I thought she might have felt awkward after what happened. Her child is not feeling well. Is that so? Turns out her child was sick. Lisa is a single mother. She's probably the only one who can take care of her child. Her daughter often gets sick and needs nursing leaves. I see. Thank you for letting me know. Maybe Lisa is struggling more than I knew. I asked Sophia about Lisa too. After you left yesterday, Lisa's mother called about her daughter's condition. Does she take time off often? Yes. I heard she has a 5-year-old child. Is it common for the child to get sick so often? I'm not sure, but it's possible the child has some illness. Hearing this, we became concerned about Lisa and her child. Oh, a message from Jacob. Jacob is my mentor and the head of the hospital that called me back. He was the surgeon for my mother and advised me on becoming a doctor. I still respect him a lot. Jacob, what's up? I want to transfer a 5-year-old child with a heart condition to your hospital. Okay, please send me the medical records. Thanks, I'm counting on you. Upon reviewing the medical record, I was shocked. The patient was Alice, Lisa's daughter. I decided to ask Lisa for details when she came for the transfer procedures. Alice, my daughter, has a congenital heart condition. She's already had surgery when she was younger. She's had surgery before. Yes, but it wasn't fully treated, and she's been in and out of the hospital. This is her third transfer. It sounds serious. She can barely manage daily activities. I want to send her to daycare, but it's difficult, so my mother usually takes care of her. Lisa, speaking like this, was not her usual lively self, but a mother truly worried about her child. I really want to be with her, but I have to work to earn money. Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. What about her father? After learning about Alice's illness, he left a divorce note and disappeared. I haven't been able to contact him since then. I really don't know where he went. Lisa, sorry for asking, but are you okay? Thanks. I wanted to remarry for money. I thought a doctor would have money I needed for Alice's surgeries. I patted Lisa's back as she lamented. There's a high medical expense system in America, and children's medical fees are subsidized by the government. It shouldn't be an unpayable amount. I know that, but I was told her condition couldn't be treated in America. It would cost a fortune to go abroad for surgery. Lisa raised her voice. I looked at her squarely. There's no need to go abroad. What? I said quietly, and Lisa looked stunned. I'll treat her. Leave it to me. Bob, Dr. Davis, please take good care of Alice. I performed Alice's surgery with Sophia as my assistant. We'll definitely cure her. Yes. The surgery took time but was a success. Mommy, I want to go to school. Yes, you will. Let's focus on getting better for now. Okay. Alice gradually regained her health. If things continue like this, she should be able to attend elementary school. Dr. Davis, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad we could treat her. Lisa expressed her gratitude. And about what happened in school? Yes. I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I'm really sorry. She then deeply apologized for her past harassment. I can forget the past, but it has nothing to do with my work. A doctor puts their all into treating any patient. Thank you so much. Lisa smiled through tears. After that, Lisa became more dedicated as a nurse. She gained more trust from patients due to her gentler demeanor. Having the opportunity to see her daughter getting better during breaks must have been a blessing for her. Bob, there's a suspicious person. What? Let go of me. One day, Sophia brought in a blonde man, claiming he was suspicious. Are you Lisa's acquaintance? Seeing him, Lisa was initially shocked, but her expression quickly turned to anger. Let me hit him once. Hey, calm down. Please stop, Lisa. So, Lisa tried to grab the man, and Sophia and I had to desperately stop her. Don't stop me. That idiot is my ex-husband. The one who left the divorce note and disappeared. He disappeared when things got tough, and now he shows up out of the blue. Wait a minute, don't hit him. That's not the solution. Eventually, we calmed Lisa down and took her and her ex-husband to the director's office to talk. The blonde man was David, Lisa's ex-husband and Alice's father. Lisa, I'm truly sorry. David knelt down in front of Lisa. I heard you were working here and thought maybe I could see you. That's why he was acting suspicious in the lobby, staring at the nurses. I caught him thinking he was a suspicious person. Please don't do anything dangerous next time, I said, smiling wryly at Sophia's words. I've already asked, but what do you want after all this time? I wanted to give this to you. David pulled in a 4-size thick envelope from his bag. Lisa received it, looking puzzled, and checked the contents. What, money? She exclaimed. And I caught a glimpse of stacks of bills inside. Where did you get all this money? Well, Lisa approached David, who started explaining hesitantly. When I found out about Alice's illness, I had no savings or a decent job, so I thought I couldn't afford her treatment. And, is that why you disappeared? Yes, that's when I thought of earning money on a tuna fishing boat. A senior of mine knew a fisherman on one. David had boarded a long-distance fishing vessel, traveling the world's seas for 5 years. The money in the envelope was the result of his efforts. I couldn't contact anyone because I was on the fishing boat. I heard about this hospital through an acquaintance and then found out Lisa was working here. David looked at Lisa with an apologetic gaze. Why didn't you consult me before doing something like this? Do you know what I've been through? When I found out about Alice's illness and you disappeared, Lisa was tearfully confronting him. I'm an idiot. I thought this was all I could do. I acted immediately. I'm really sorry, Lisa. You're really an idiot. I was so worried. I'm glad you're safe. Lisa hugged David, who was smiling sadly, with tears in her eyes. It's good. They cared for each other after all. Watching them, Sophia clapped with tears in her eyes. This settles it then. I muttered to myself, relieved. Afterward, Alice continued to recover without any complications. I'm home, Alice. Daddy, I've got a present for you today. Yay. Initially wary of the father she'd never seen before, Alice quickly warmed up to David, who was good with children. It's annoying how she warms up to him so quickly. Come on now. Lisa looked at David with a pretend pout. Lisa and David remarried soon after. David pursued her relentlessly. Really, he's such a troublemaker. He was so persistent, I just gave in. Despite saying this, Lisa might have been waiting for David's return all along. Actually, at the mixer, Lisa was approached by some high-profile guys. Really, but she didn't show interest, probably because she couldn't forget David. Seems like it. David, despite being a day laborer, has found work and is working hard, and because of his good nature, it's believed that he'll eventually become a full-time employee. He is currently striving to live with Alice, who is expected to be discharged from the hospital soon. I don't want to see a child suffer. It was truly wonderful to see a happy family of 3 holding hands together. I heard about Alice from Sophia. It's great that 3 of them are back together as a family. Yes. Jacob seemed to have been concerned about Alice too. He contacted us happily after hearing our report. Seeing that family reminds me of you when you were young. What? Seeing how you worried about your mother, I was determined to get her back for you. Not just the 2 of you, but all 3 of you out of the hospital. Really? I never knew that. This was the first time I had heard this story. In fact, I just found out that Jacob remembered me. I was right. I've believed since then that you would become a good doctor. Thank you, Jacob. I'm counting on you. Thank you. By the way, Sophia, who reported about Alice and brought us together and secured David, was a big help. Oh man, I thought I was fine being single. Now I want a family too. She muttered that. She is single, but with her looks, she is popular among male doctors and nurses. If she's willing, we'll soon hear happy news about her. Then, the time came for a meal with friends I had kept waiting. You're a celebrity now, Bob. Stop it. But achieving your dream is amazing. Everyone looked older, but inside they were much the same as before. Who's picking you up today? Oh, my sister-in-law is coming. That's a good sister-in-law. My brother is coming for me. Your much younger brother, right? Yeah, he's of a good age now. I wish someone would take him off my hands. A few hours later, we dispersed as our rides arrived. Bob, I talked a bit with the man who came to pick up your friend. He seemed nice. Oh, an unexpected match might be forming. Then, through an old friend, they exchanged contact details and quickly got close. I never imagined Sophia getting married. Well, she looks happy, that's good. Yes. The following year, the two married and had a daughter. I'm home. Welcome back. When I get home, my wife and son welcome me. Recently, my son has finally started to roll over. Work is busy, but I want to take care of my son as much as possible. Oops, what's up? It's almost time for his milk. Then, I'll make it. Can you look after Kevin? Yes, please do. I've become adept at making milk and changing dirty diapers. Hey, do you have this weekend off? Yeah, I do. How about we go shopping together? Sounds good. Let's go out as a family of 3. When we go shopping, I always volunteer to hold him. I play with him whenever I can and make sure to spend time with my wife as well. My child is truly the apple of my eye. I suddenly remembered the Lisa family. A family that almost fell apart due to a misunderstanding. This time, because they both cared for each other, they were able to return to being a happy family of 3. Apparently, they were scolded quite a bit by both sets of parents. They were forgiven by promising to stay together and be happy until the end. Dr. Davis, Mommy is smiling, and I'm happy. That's great, Alice. Yeah, I love Mom and Dad. Seeing Alice say this, Lisa and David smiled happily. Watching that couple taught me the importance of properly expressing our feelings to each other. Thank you always. I looked at my wife and said that. Surprised by my sudden words, she then smiled warmly. You too, always working hard. I hugged my wife, who replied to me. Let's continue to be happy together as a family of 3. Sounds like a proposal. I thought about how important it is to continue caring for each other and expressing it in words.